In the previous video, we used an if-else-if structure to find the name of a team selected from a combo box. And we'll go back and look at the code here, and we can see that every condition is looking at the value of campus. So when we're only looking at one value in all these comparisons, we could substitute the if-else-if for a switch structure. And so what I'm going to do is simply comment this out and rewrite this using a switch. So for switch, we type the word switch, and then in parentheses, I'm going to put the value that I'm looking at, which in this case is going to be campus, and a set of curly brackets. And then we use the word case in the value we want to compare this. Now this is a string, so I need to put the comparison in quotes, since it's a literal string. And so if case is SMCC, and I've got a colon after that, I tell it what I want to do. I want to have it set team_txt, set the text of that to Cougars. And then I'm going to type in a break statement. And that tells it to not look at any of the cases if that was a match. Next case, ASU. And here we're going to set the text to Sun Devils. Enter my break statement. Next case. And that should be ASU, not ASUY. Case Arizona. Now I'm putting these in all uppercase because I set my string value for campus to all uppercase. So that way it is not case sensitive. So I want to make sure that all my cases here are uppercase, otherwise they will not match. And this one's going to be Wildcats. Again, another break. Case NAU. This one's Lumberjacks. And a break. Now I can also have a default value in case there's no match. And our default response here will be, I don't know. Try again. Now in reality that should probably never come up because we don't have any options other than those four, and our combo box is not editable. So I'm now going to get rid of this if-else structure. I no longer need that. And there is our code written with a switch structure instead of an if-else-if structure. And one of the reasons to do this, it just simply makes it a little more readable. Let's test to make sure that this works. SMCC is the Cougars. ASU are the Sun Devils. Arizona Wildcats. NAU Lumberjacks. Here's another example. I've got a text box that is dynamic called currentday_txt, and that's the only object on my stage. And all I want to have happen is for when I start the program, I want this application to look at the system clock and tell me, is this a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday? So here's the code to do that. I've got a function called getDayOfWeek, which is going to return a string data type. Now we haven't really looked at returning data other than void. Most of our examples thus far have returned nothing. This is going to return a string. In this function I'm going to get the current date. I'm going to call it now, and then I have a variable called day in which I'm getting the day based on what the current date is. Now day returns an integer, and the integer returns is either 0 through 6. So 0 is a Sunday, 6 is a Saturday. 1 would be a Monday, 2 would be a Tuesday, and so forth. Then I use a switch statement looking at day. And if case is 0, then I've got a return string, which I've set as a variable, return string, which is a string data type, today is, and I'm going to concatenate to that the value of Sunday. If it's a 1, I'm going to concatenate to today is the value Monday. If it's a 2, I'll say today is Tuesday, and so forth. At the end of that switch statement, we're going to return the value of return string. So this returns the string, which we said it would return, to the calling statement. Now here's my calling statement. When the application is executed, this line of code is going to run outside of the function, and all it's going to do is let's set the text of currentDay_txt to whatever the value is of get day of week, and this is the function call. So when it sees this, it's going to execute this whole function, and it's going to return that return string, which goes in, replaces this function, and puts it into the text. So today is a Tuesday. Let me test this. And I'm told today is Tuesday. So here's a third example. I want the user to enter a number such as E or X or M or I or F. Click this button, which is it, and get some feedback down here in this dynamic text box as to whether that letter is a consonant or a vowel. So just to set this up, I have a input text box called letter_txt, a button named which_btn, and a text box named output_txt. Now, that's a dynamic text box. I'm going to add a layer for my actions. And let's go in and write our code. So I'm going to set a event listener for which_btn. It's going to respond to a click event from the mouse event class. And I'll call my function which. Which is responding to a mouse event, and it's going to return nothing. Okay, so in my function, I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call my variable letter. It's going to be of a string type, and it's going to equal letter_txt.text. And then we're going to do a switch. I'm going to look at the value of letter. And my first case is it an A? Now let's also do something a little bit different here. Let's set that to 2 uppercase. That way it's going to convert it to an uppercase A. That's what I want to compare it against, is an uppercase A. And then my output _txt.text equals, that is a vowel. And we'll do a break statement. Now your inclination might be to create a case for every one of the letters. So next one would be case B, and then case C, and case D, and so forth. I'm going to show you a little bit easier way to do that, in that I can have multiple cases matching. E with a colon, case I with a colon, case O with a colon, and case U with a colon. So if the letter is any one of those 5, that's going to be a match, and it's going to execute this code. My next case is going to be a Y. And my output _txt.text is going to equal sometimes a consonant, sometimes a vowel. And I'm going to break that statement. And then everything else should be a consonant, so I'm just going to add a default statement here. In which output _txt.text equals, that is a consonant. And I misspelled consonant up here. And again, let's add my break statement here. Really isn't necessary, but that is our switch. That will actually handle all 26 of our letters. Let's test it. Make sure we have no errors. Everything's good there. Test movie. And so I've got the E there to start with. I'm told that, oops, that is a consonant. Let's change this to an A. That is a consonant. So something's gone wrong here. Let's go back and look at our code. So my problem is not in my code. My code is actually fine. My problem is here in this input box. I have it set for multi-line, which is placing a carriage return after the letter. In fact, I'm going to set my max characters here to 1, so I can't type in more than 1. And now let's test this again. So with that carriage return after the letter, it wasn't matching the E. It would only match E carriage return. Which is it? It's a vowel. So if I try S, that is a consonant. If I try Y, sometimes a consonant, sometimes a vowel. Let's try an A. That's a vowel. An R, that's a consonant. I is a vowel. G is a consonant. O is a vowel. M is a consonant. And U is a vowel. So it seems to be working. And you can see that our code in this case wasn't really extensive to handle all 26 of those letters.